Okay, we're back to foundational documents. In this case, we're talking about the Supreme Court and the judiciary in general. And this is Federalist 78. Alexander Hamilton is the author. And so we're going to be highlighting and marking it up because we're going to be doing a close read. So you'll need this document in front of you so you can do the exact same thing, either print it out or I've given you a copy of it, hopefully, to do this with. All right, cool. Let's just jump right in and go quickly through it. All right, so first thing he addresses, and he literally says the word first, as to the mode of appointing judges, this is the same with that of appointing the officers of the union in general. So that, of course, means president appoints. So he's just saying the president will appoint just like the president would anything else. Second, as to the tenure by which judges hold their places, according to the plan of the convention, all judges who may be appointed by the United States are to hold their offices during good behavior, which is conformable to the most approved of state constitutions. So basically saying like, hey, look, we're doing good behavior, which remember means what? You should already be thinking life term, okay? Or until they retire, whatever. But it's conformable to the most approved of the state constitution. So most states already have this. Like it's not anything really radical here. They're just saying like we're going to do what the states do. Most states do this. We think it's good. There you go. In a monarchy, it is an excellent barrier to the despotism of the prince. In a republic, it is no less an excellent barrier to the encroachment in the oppressions of the representative body. So the idea is that it keeps legislatures out of judicial business. So a monarchy that has kings for judges for life, the monarchy doesn't mess with the judges because the judges are there for life. And in this sense, he's kind of making the same analogy, except he's saying, look, the representative body, the legislature, by having lifetime terms, then it's much less likely that the legislative body is going to mess with encroachments into the judicial branch and start messing with people and judges and their rights. And it is the best expedient by which can be devised of any government to secure a steady and upright and impartial administration of laws. So steady, life tenure, steady admin of law. So this is another reason for it. So he's saying, one, this is good because state legislatures have it. Two, it's good because it keeps legislatures out of judicial business. So like states have it, it keeps them out of the legislature out of judicial business. And three, life tenure means a steady administration of law. So he's making an argument here on why this lifetime tenure is a good thing. That inflexible and uniform adherence to the rights of the Constitution can certainly not be expected from judges who hold their office by temporary commission, meaning like their office is temporary. There would be too great a disposition to consult popularity. So temporary office, consult popularity. I'll scroll that up here. Hold on. All right, so so they're always saying like the reason you don't want temporary office because then they're more likely to want to know what the public thinks. They're looking for popularity. And so they're going to make decisions based on popularity, not justice. And the whole purpose of the Constitution is to create a situation where there is justice and fairness. And we don't want that from we don't want our judges like putting their finger to the wind. Well, what do people think? Oh, they want this person prosecuted. Well, then I guess I will, even though the evidence may be completely different. So this is an important thing here. Lifetime tenure, according to Hamilton. Judiciary, and then he's going to go on to another topic here. The judiciary, from the nature of its functions, will always be the least dangerous to the political rights of the Constitution because it is the least in capacity to annoy or injure them. So he's arguing here, judiciary, least dangerous branch to rights. He's arguing, he's going to make an argument. He's going to tell us why here, why the judiciary is the least dangerous to our rights. The executive not only dispenses the honors, but holds the sword of the community. So dispenses the honors, meaning gives out positions in government, but also holds the sword of the community. What does that mean? The sword. Sword is enforcement of law. Okay, so like he's the head of the federal law enforcement. Um, he's the head of the federal police forces, like the U.S. Marshals and FBI. Now, back then they didn't have those, but that's the idea. Like he's the one who's commander in chief of the military, and so he could, if he wanted, use the military, and that really could ruin your rights. Whereas the judges don't have that. The legislature not only commands the purse. Okay, that's purse meaning money. All right, equals budget. Very powerful. But prescribes the rules by which the duties and rights of every citizen are to be regulated. So basically, pass laws. So Congress can controls the budget and they control the laws that are written. So you have the president can enforce law with the military and police forces. And then now you have the budgetary power and passing law power of Congress. So now listen, he's going to now contrast that with the judiciary. The judiciary, on the contrary, has no influence over either the sword or the purse, nor direction either of the strength or of the wealth of society, and can take no active resolution whatsoever. So they have no influence, judiciary, no sword or purse powers. That makes them weak. And these guys are, the judiciary is pretty weak, really. It may be truly be said to have neither force nor will, but merely judgment, and must ultimately depend on the aid of the executive arm, even for the efficacy of its judgments. So even if a decision is made, um, decisions enforced by executive. So even the decisions that it does make, it needs the president to enforce them. And if the president just tells them, sorry, you're out of luck, that's not going to happen. For example, the infamous case of the Cherokees in Georgia, the Supreme Court ruled that the government could not force the Cherokees to leave. And Jackson supposedly, we don't know this for a fact, but supposedly Jackson said, Chief Justice Marshall has made his decision. Now let him enforce it. And then Jackson, of course, forced the Cherokees to leave anyway. And the point is that the Supreme Court decision meant nothing unless the president was willing to enforce that decision. So Hamilton is making the case here again for the weakness of the judiciary as a branch. And therefore, we didn't need to fear the fact that they had a lifetime term. A simple view of the matter suggests several important consequences. It proves incontestably that the judiciary is beyond comparison the weakest of the three branches of power, that it can never attack with success either of the other two. It equally proves that though individual oppression may now and then proceed from the courts of justice, the general liberty of the people can never be endangered from that quarter. I mean, so long as the judiciary remains truly distinct from the legislature and the executive. For I agree that there is no liberty if the power of judging be not separated from the legislative and executive powers. By the way, that quote right there, let's grab that quote. That quote is Montesquieu. Remember good old Montesquieu, Spirit of Laws? He is, quoting Montesquieu, which everyone would be familiar with back then. And he's saying, like, as long as it's separate branch and we have separation of powers here, then the judiciary is not going to be something that we have to fear. Let's finish up. The complete independence of the court of justice is peculiarly essential in limited constitution. A limited constitution can be preserved in practice no other way than through the medium of courts of justice, whose duty it must be to declare all acts contrary to the manifest tenor of the Constitution void. So this is huge because what he's talking about here is the right of judicial review. Declare laws unconstitutional. I spelled something wrong. Hold on a second. Yeah. So he's saying it's the duty of the court to declare all acts contrary to the tenor of the Constitution void. And he's basically saying they have a right of judicial review. He's arguing for the idea of judicial review. Now, that wasn't established in the Constitution. It doesn't say that directly in a Constitution. It's more of an implied power. But In Marbury versus Madison, it will be used, and Congress and the president won't really question it at the time. And so, therefore, it will be established as a principle for the court to do. Without this, all the reservations of particular rights or privileges would amount to nothing. So he's like, well, I mean, we can write it down on paper that you have a right to free speech. But if Congress passes a law violating your free speech, somebody has to declare it illegal, or therefore writing down that you have free speech means nothing because Congress can just overrule it. All right, so let's finish up here the last little paragraph. Some perplexity respecting the right to the courts to pronounce legislative acts void has arisen from an imagination that the doctrine would imply a superiority of the judiciary to the legislative power. So he's basically saying, like, there are people who say the Supreme Court should not be able to declare laws void or be able to declare them unconstitutional. So now he's gonna deal with that. It is urged that the authority which can declare the acts of another void must necessarily be superior to the one whose acts may be declared void. So if the Supreme Court can declare acts of the legislature void, therefore it is superior to the legislature, which no one would want, because I mean, in a republic, the people ruling, then the people should have a say through their legislature. No legislative act, therefore, contrary to the Constitution, can be valid. So he's saying, wait a second, though, we can't have no act can be valid if against Constitution. So he's like, hey, but the problem with that, if we just never allow the Supreme Court to be rule a law unconstitutional, then that means that there can be laws that are against the Constitution, and that just can't happen. To deny this would be to affirm that the deputy is greater than the principal, that the servant is above his master, that the representatives of the people are superior to the people themselves. So he's like, if we allow acts contrary to the Constitution, like one that violates your free speech, if we allow that to exist, then therefore the legislature is above the Constitution. That the representatives of the people are above the people. But that's not true, because the representatives are supposed to serve the people. So he's saying, like, somebody has to step in and rule these acts unconstitutional. It is far more rational to suppose that courts were designed to be an intermediate body between the people and the legislature in order, among other things, to keep the latter within the limits assigned to their authority. So the court checks legislative power if against Constitution. So that's what he's arguing here, that it ends up being a check. It's not going to show up. Sorry about that. All right, court checks legislative power, authority, a power against the Constitution. If anything that they do against the Constitution will be checked. The interpretation of the law is the proper and peculiar province of courts. A constitution is, in fact, and must be regarded as judges as fundamental law, supreme law of the land. It is therefore belongs to them to ascertain its meaning, as well as to the meaning of any particular act proceeding from the legislative body. So basically, he makes a pretty impassioned argument for judicial review. He also makes a pretty impassioned argument early about the value of a lifetime sentence. And that's really the big part here of Federalist 78. All right, awesome. We're done. That's that. We're going to do a card here that actually gets us the main point. So you'll need the other sheet of paper that has the bullet points for it. All right, thanks.